In a few moments, I will sign a historic executive order instituting reciprocal tariffs.
Liberation Day.
Liberation Day. And
Donald Trump has announced sweeping tariffs.
A new set of tariffs.
You've probably seen the headlines by now. The US has just dropped a global tariff bomb, calling it the Liberation Day. At first glance, it might sound like something only Americans should care about. But here's the thing, it affects everyone, including us right here in the UAE. So in this video, I'm breaking down what these new US tariffs actually mean, what kind of ripple effects they'll have on businesses, oil prices, trade, and your wallet if you're living or doing business in the UAE. So let's get right into it. Alright, quick background. If you haven't followed this story closely, on April 2nd, 2025, the former and current US President Donald Trump announced a massive global tariff policy, calling it the Liberation Day. The US is now imposing a baseline 10% tariff on all imports, and some countries like China and the EU are getting hit even harder, with tariffs going up to 54%. And the goal is to balance out unfair trade deals, according to Trump. And look, whether you agree or disagree with that politically, there's no denying this is going to shake up global trade, and the UAE isn't immune. Let's start with the obvious. We're now subject to a flat 10% tariff on anything we export to US, and that includes aluminum, petrochemicals, construction materials, food packaging, you name it. Even if we're not the biggest exporter to the US, that added cost makes our products less competitive in American markets. And that in turn hurts UAE-based exporters who rely on US contracts or partnerships. So if you're a UAE-based manufacturer or exporter doing business with the US, this directly affects your bottom line. Margins shrink, pricing strategies get complicated, and some businesses may even lose clients who decide to source domestically within the US or from countries not affected by these tariffs. But here's where it gets more interesting: the indirect impact. Even though the UAE wasn't hit with the extreme tariffs like China or the EU, the global reaction to this is going to ripple across markets, and here is how it might unfold. 1. Global supply chain shockwaves. Let's take global supply chains for instance. When China gets slapped with a 54% tariff, they're not just going to eat that cost. They'll reroute production, look for alternate buyers, or even dump excess inventory into other markets at lower prices. That creates a ripple effect globally: pricing volatility, increased competition, and supply chain congestion. Which means even if you're not trading directly with the US, you'll still feel the impact. Local businesses in Dubai or Abu Dhabi might suddenly see price shifts, delays in shipment of raw materials, or even unexpected shortages in certain products. That could affect everything from construction timelines to food costs, depending on how dependent a company is on global imports. Number 2, oil prices and the GCC. Let's talk about oil now. Investors get cautious, trade slows down, and with it, the need for oil decreases. And as we all know, oil is a huge pillar of the UAE economy. If oil prices drop, it hits everything, from government revenues and infrastructure investment to private sector confidence. This then feeds into the next big issue: investor confidence in the GCC. The UAE has built a reputation over the past decade as one of the most business-friendly, globally connected countries in the world. But when a superpower like the US suddenly turns inward and starts imposing trade barriers, it makes the global landscape feel a little shaky. Let's go to number 3. Investor confidence in the GCC. Foreign investors who might have been planning to enter Dubai's real estate market in recent times or fund a startup here may hesitate. Not because the UAE did anything wrong, but because the overall global trade climate feels unstable. And when confidence drops, funding slows down. M&A deals get delayed. People become more risk averse. Let's talk about some key industries that might be affected. So, what industries might feel this most? Let's start with logistics and re-export. Dubai thrives on being a global re-export hub. Our ports here are among the busiest in the world. But if global demand dips due to increased tariffs, those shipping volumes take a hit. You might see lower port activity, lower customs revenue, and less container traffic flowing through our Jebel Ali port. Then there's manufacturing, particularly sectors like aluminum, plastics, packaging, and construction materials. These are export-heavy industries. Tariffs shrink their competitiveness abroad. So you may start to see production slowdowns or workforce cuts if profit margins start to tighten. Retail and tech could also feel some pain. A lot of electronics, smartphones, and branded goods are part of complex global supply chains. If the cost of bringing those goods into the UAE rises due to upstream tariffs and delays, you and I as consumers might be paying more at checkout. And lastly, real estate and tourism, two industries heavily tied to global investor confidence. If people overseas start feeling nervous about the global economy, they may delay that second home purchase in Dubai or cancel a vacation trip. So the question becomes, what can the UAE do to shield itself from these ripple effects? To be honest, the UAE has been proactive for years when it comes to trade diversification. But this is one of those moments that calls for leveling up that strategy. First, I expect the UAE will double down on strengthening non-US trade relationships. Countries across Asia, Africa, and Europe will likely become even more crucial partners. We've already signed several comprehensive economic partnership agreements with countries like India, Indonesia, and Turkey. These agreements help reduce barriers and make it easier to trade without relying on the Western markets. Second, we'll likely see increased support for domestic production and innovation. The Make It in the Emirates campaign will probably gain more traction. You'll see new incentives for manufacturers to localize production over here, especially in tech, agribusiness, and essential goods. The idea is to build resilience so that we're not overly exposed to global supply chain disruptions. And third, and perhaps most importantly, I think the UAE will continue positioning itself as a neutral, globally connected business haven. We're not in a trade war. We don't pick sides. In a world that's becoming increasingly polarized, the UAE offers stability, not just in the Middle East, but overall in the world. That's a huge advantage. Companies in Europe, Asia, or even the US may start looking at Dubai not just as a trading partner, but as a strategic headquarter to access multiple markets without getting caught in political crossfire. Here's my take as a resident and business owner. Look, I'm not a politician or economist, but I'm someone who runs a business in Dubai. And when stuff like this happens globally, I pay attention. These global events might feel distant, but they matter. Whether you're importing products, building a brand, or even just managing your monthly expenses, the ripple effects show up in pricing, supply chains, and even the job market. The UAE has always shown incredible resilience. We bounce back quickly and we adapt fast. But that doesn't mean we can afford to be passive. These tariffs and the mindset behind them signal a broader shift in how global trade might work moving forward. And if you're not paying attention, you're already behind. Trump's so-called Liberation Day is anything but liberating for global trade. It's going to cause waves, and how each country responds will define their next decade of economic growth. For the UAE, this is a moment of strategic clarity, a reminder that diversification, resilience, and proactive policy are not just buzzwords. They're necessary tools for survival in a world that's changing real fast. So let me know in the comments below what you think of this situation. Will this ultimately benefit the UAE in some roundabout way, or do you think it'll slow us down? If you found this breakdown helpful, hit the like button, subscribe, and stay tuned for more videos that help you navigate finance, policy, and business in Dubai. See you guys in the next one.